Welcome into our special coverage of the Noor Salman trial here on clickorlando.com. I'm Bridget Ellison. Right now, the fourth day of jury selection is underway for the trial of the Pulse gunman's widow. As this trial develops, we here at News 6 are bringing you the very latest, both on the air and on clickorlando.com. And this afternoon, we're hearing reaction from Noor Salman's defense team after they filed a new motion last night revealing new information on the whereabouts of the Pulse gunman the night before the June 2016 mass shooting. We want to bring in News 6's Nadine Yanis. She's been at the federal courthouse all morning in Orlando. And Nadine, you actually talked to one of Salman's attorneys.
I did, Bridget. I wanted to get in earlier today so I could talk to Linda Moreno about this bombshell of a motion that the defense team dropped yesterday. Salman's defense attorney telling me that she couldn't talk more about it, but you could tell that she wanted to, but the court's prohibiting it. What she did say, though, is that if you read this motion, you will get an inside look at to what the defense is arguing, alleging that the government simply doesn't have enough evidence to back their charges that Salman helped Mateen pull off the Pulse attack. You feeling good about it?
I'm feeling that this case is starting to see the light.
Salman's defense attorney Linda Moreno says their motion filed in federal court late yesterday afternoon is all we need to see to get an inside look at their defense, alleging what the government says is Salman's confession isn't backed by evidence. The motion reads, at no point does cell phone data place Salman at the club when the government claims she was with Mateen, casing it days before. It also shows the government's argument Mateen chose to attack a gay nightclub is also wrong. In fact, the defense argues that Mateen may have picked Pulse as his target less than 2 hours before the massacre. A timeline from the defense reads on June 11 at 10 p.m., Mateen was at Disney Springs. There, at 11:05 p.m., he searched Google for the term Disney World. And at 12:22 a.m., searched for downtown Orlando nightclubs. The search showed, according to the defense, the Eve Orlando nightclub and Pulse. They say the evidence will show that at 1:34 in the morning, Mateen started driving towards Eve Orlando, but then turned around to Pulse, where he stayed. As she walked into day 4 of jury selection, when asked if she believes this unravels the government's case, Moreno said this.
I think that the motion speaks for itself. I really can't comment.
And so a lot of new details, including Mateen's steps the night before the Pulse attack. What was interesting today is that Barbara Poma, the Pulse owner, she came back here for jury selection. As she was walking in this morning, I asked her if she heard about these new details. She said no, she didn't, but that is exactly why she's here. And Bridget, it was day 1 of jury selection when I spoke to Pulse survivors and families that they say they are here watching the trial take place because not only do they want to see what happens to Salman, but really they want to get their questions answered about the investigation itself and about what happened inside that Pulse nightclub.
Yeah, Nadine, it seems like everyone's trying to put together all the pieces of this puzzle. And now that we're in day 4 of jury selection, we know that there are up to 20-some potential jurors. What's the latest on that? What happened later this morning in court today?
So, Bridget, last we heard there were 26 total jurors that were kept in the pool. The judge having some better luck today. Most of the jurors were kept in. So that brings the total to 26 again. The judge wants to get the number of potential jurors in a pool of about 60. And from there, that is where the judge will feel comfortable to pull their final 12 plus 6 alternates. So we're going to take a step back in and, of course, have the latest on jury selection on day 4, starting at News 6 at 4 as well.
Okay, thank you so much, Nadine, and we'll see you soon. Joining us now in studio, News 6 legal analyst Jason Johnson with Lowndes, Drozdick, Doster, Cantor, and Reed here in Orlando.
That's correct.
Yeah, longtime federal attorney, and we thank you for helping come in and analyze some of the goings-on in the federal courthouse today.
My pleasure to be here.
And just, reacting to Nadine's latest update, where does that leave you?
Well, we're almost halfway to the number of potential jurors that the judge wants to get to, and we're 3.5 days through jury selection. So I think we're going to hit his target of starting the trial with opening statements beginning to middle of next week. We're going to get to that 60 number, then each side will have their opportunity to exercise their peremptory challenges. And just to refresh your recollection, a peremptory challenge is the ability of both the government and the defense to strike a potential juror without having to give a reason. There are some limitations on that having to do with certain protected classes, but so long as neither side is violating that, then they can really strike anybody for any reason. They don't have to give a reason to the court. Once we get through that process, the judge will then give certain instructions to the jury, and then each side will begin with their opening statements.
Okay, and we talked about this motion, this new motion. Do you think that it will really change much?
Well, it's interesting that the defense seems to put so much emphasis on it. Certainly it brings to light some interesting information that I don't think has been in the public sphere before, namely that Mr. Mateen had gone out to Disney Springs and Epcot Center and the Eve nightclub prior to attacking the Pulse nightclub on the night of June 12th. But I'm not sure that it really changes the overall analysis of how the government is going to approach the prosecution of Ms. Salman once we get to trial. The defense is trying to sort of knock out a few of these arguments that the government has. Really, this is more of a motion in limine, but they couch it as a motion to prevent the government from making certain statements during their opening statement. And they're trying to prevent the government from being able to say that this was an attack on the gay community. I'm not really sure that that's the purpose of any reference to the Pulse being a gay nightclub. I'm not sure why that would be important to the government. What would be important to the government in referencing Pulse as a gay nightclub is that Ms. Salman, during her interrogation or during her statements to the FBI, made a statement before being told that Pulse was the target, that Mr. Mateen loved everybody, including homosexuals, because they are sympathetic to Muslims. And that, seemed to strike a chord with the FBI. They found it curious that she would make a reference to the homosexual community, given that she didn't know, or at least hadn't been informed at that point, that Pulse was the target. So that, of course, raised their hackles, caused them to do some further questioning of Ms. Salman. And it was during that period of time that she made a number of statements in her written statement that are fairly incriminating to her, and that I think the government's going to largely rely upon in convicting her.
And he called her before everything happened.
He called her, well, I think he sent her a text message, or she sent him a text message, and this kind of goes into the government's first theory under the aiding and abetting charge, which is that she helped him prepare a cover story. That allegation is essentially that she told him that if your mother calls, tell her you went to see Nemo and that I don't feel well to come to the dinner this evening. The government wants to say that was her helping provide him with a cover story in case Mr. Mateen's mother called, when the defense wants to say, well, that was really just her saying, look, I don't feel like going to dinner tonight. Tell your mother you went to Nemo's, which is where she alleges he told her he was going. And so they say this isn't really her providing a cover story to him at all. This is really just saying, here's what I want you to tell your mother if she calls, because I'm not coming to dinner tonight. The court points out in one of its orders that the government really fails to establish or fails to state how, if he hadn't provided that story to his mother, how it would have unraveled the attack. Would she have called the FBI, saying, hey, I think my son is about to attack, to commit jihad against somebody? And I think it's probably the government's weakest argument against her. I think their strongest argument is, at least on the aiding and abetting count, is that she participated in some of these activities of his that really helped further his effort to provide this material support to ISIL in committing this attack and leading to the deaths of 49 people.
Because her written statements reveal that she knew about firearm purchases and she knew about riding around Orlando in days prior.
Both in Palm Beach, they went and scouted or cased, as the government would like to call it, a place called City Place. And then they drove to Orlando, and the government's allegation is they cased Disney Springs. Frankly, in reviewing this motion a little bit further this morning, it strikes me that the defense may be playing into the government's hands a little bit by saying, hey, there's no evidence that they came to Pulse before he ever attacked. He went out to Disney Springs first. It almost helps prove the government's aiding and abetting charge that she cased Disney Springs with him beforehand. He didn't end up attacking Disney Springs, and that's apparently because there were armed security guards that were at Disney Springs that evening. So he was really looking for a soft target, is the defense's claim. But by pointing out that he went to Disney Springs first, and the evidence that they proffered in the motion supports that, you're almost helping the government by saying she assisted him in casing that as a potential target.
Okay, well, as we move forward, we will continue checking back in, and we thank you, Mr. Johnson, for coming in. And because, again, this is a federal trial, no cameras or recording devices are permitted inside the courtroom. So News 6 and clickorlando.com will have reporters and crew members there at the trial every day. We have a special page detailing everything that happens, including updates on clickorlando.com. Just look under the Noor Salman tab under News. And join us tonight at 6:30 for another discussion and update. News 6 anchor Ginger Gadsden talks with investigator Mike DeForest and legal analyst Mark O'Mara as jury selection continues here on day 4 of the trial. Watch it live right here on clickorlando.com. Thanks for being with us this afternoon. I'm Bridget Ellison.